When a beloved veteran wrestler gets pulled from a show at the last minute, fans immediately start speculating about contract disputes, creative differences, or backstage drama. But sometimes the reason is far more serious and sobering, as we learned today when news broke that Blue Demon Jr., a legend of lucha libre and international wrestling, was involved in a serious car accident that has him fighting a very different kind of battle than what we're used to seeing in the ring. Blue Demon Jr. isn't just some random independent wrestler. At 59 years old, this masked icon has been a staple of professional wrestling for close to 3 decades, having debuted way back in 1996 when most of today's WWE roster was still in elementary school. Think about that longevity for a second. 29 years of taking bumps, flying through the air, and entertaining fans across multiple countries and continents. That's not just a career, that's a lifetime dedication to the art of professional wrestling. Demon Jr. has taken his considerable talents to some of the biggest and most respected promotions in wrestling history. We're talking NWA, CMLL, AAA, organizations that have produced countless legends and helped define what lucha libre means to wrestling fans worldwide. Currently, the veteran performs primarily for various independent promotions throughout the United States and his home country of Mexico, keeping the tradition of lucha libre alive and mentoring younger talent who grew up idolizing masked wrestlers just like him. The news hit social media just a few hours ago like a punch to the gut. Blue Demon Jr. was involved in a serious car crash this Monday, the kind of accident that immediately makes everyone stop whatever they're doing and hope for the best possible outcome. The announcement came from IWRG, which stands for International Wrestling Revolution Group, an indie company that's been a fixture of the Mexican wrestling scene for years. Demon Jr. was scheduled to compete for them on October 30th in a match for their World Heavyweight Championship, which would have been a significant booking for both the company and the wrestler. But championships and wrestling matches immediately became irrelevant when real life intervened in the worst possible way. Following the car accident, IWRG made the obvious call and pulled Blue Demon Jr. from the event. No wrestling match is worth risking someone's health or recovery, and the company deserves credit for immediately prioritizing the wrestler's well-being over their booking plans. It's the right move even though it undoubtedly creates headaches for their creative team who now has to completely rework their championship plans with just days' notice. Car accidents are terrifying for anyone, but they're particularly concerning for professional wrestlers whose bodies are already dealing with decades of accumulated wear and tear. These are athletes who've spent their entire careers absorbing punishment that would hospitalize normal people. Their backs, necks, knees, and joints have taken thousands of impacts over the years. Add a serious car accident on top of that existing damage, and you're looking at a recovery process that could be significantly more complicated than it would be for someone without that wrestling history. When news like this breaks, the wrestling community immediately rallies around the injured performer, but there's always that agonizing waiting period where nobody knows how serious the injuries are or what the long-term prognosis looks like. Fans were understandably concerned about Blue Demon Jr.'s health, refreshing social media constantly hoping for any update that would provide clarity about his condition. That uncertainty is brutal for everyone who cares about the person behind the mask. Thankfully, Blue Demon Jr.'s family stepped up and shared a much-needed update via Instagram that provided some relief to worried fans. According to the family's statement, the wrestler is now out of danger and stable, which is absolutely the best news anyone could have hoped for given the circumstances. However, the update also noted that he remains in the intensive care unit, which tells you this wasn't just a minor fender bender with some bruises and soreness. ICU placement means serious injuries that require constant monitoring and medical attention. The fact that Demon Jr. is stable and out of immediate danger is cause for celebration and relief, but it's also a reminder that recovery is going to be a long process. You don't end up in the ICU after a car accident and bounce back in a week or two. This is going to require substantial time for healing, physical therapy, and making sure there are no complications or setbacks during recovery. For a 59-year-old athlete whose body has already endured decades of professional wrestling, that recovery timeline could be even more extended. The family's statement also included a gracious note extending gratitude to fans for their concern and well wishes. That might seem like a small thing, but it's actually incredibly meaningful. When you're going through a medical crisis, knowing that thousands of people across the world are rooting for you and sending positive energy can provide real emotional support during a scary and uncertain time. The wrestling community might be chaotic and dramatic when it comes to storylines and backstage gossip, but when one of their own is actually hurt, that community shows up with genuine love and support. Based on the update from his family, it's safe to say that fans should expect Blue Demon Jr. to spend considerable time away from the ring. This isn't going to be a situation where he's back competing in a month. We're likely looking at months of recovery, possibly longer depending on the specific nature of his injuries and how his body responds to treatment. For someone who's been wrestling for nearly 30 years and whose identity is deeply connected to being in that ring, being forced to step away for an extended period is probably almost as difficult as the physical recovery itself. This situation puts wrestling in proper perspective. We get so caught up in storylines, championships, who's winning and who's losing, contract negotiations, and backstage politics that sometimes we forget these are real human beings putting their bodies on the line every single time they step through those ropes. Blue Demon Jr. has spent decades entertaining fans and helping build the legacy of Lucha Libre. He's taken risks in the ring that most people couldn't even comprehend attempting. And now he's dealing with injuries from something completely outside the controlled environment of professional wrestling. Car accidents are unfortunately common and can happen to anyone regardless of how careful they are. Thousands of people are injured in vehicle accidents every single day, and sometimes even the most cautious drivers can end up in terrible situations through no fault of their own. The randomness of it is what makes these situations so sobering. Blue Demon Jr. has survived nearly 3 decades of professional wrestling, one of the most physically demanding professions on the planet, only to end up in the ICU because of a car crash on a random Monday. The wrestling schedule that Blue Demon Jr. has been working, bouncing between indie promotions in the US and Mexico, is grueling for someone half his age. The travel alone is exhausting, driving from city to city, dealing with border crossings.